Federal government approves new agricultural technology and innovation policy for 2022 to 2025.
All Progressives Congress shifts dates for primary elections.
Court denies leader of proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu's bail application.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss lingering issues in the aviation sector.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world in 2020, the global aviation industry passed through serious turbulence, and this has persisted for a while now in many countries, including Nigeria.
That's right, Kyria. Now, a number of events are, of course, expected to shape the industry this year, and it's indeed already shaping the industry, particularly here in Nigeria. And one of such events is the increase in the cost of aviation fuel. And this has led to threats of industrial action or suspension of services by operators who later put that threat on hold. Now, earlier in the year and also within parts of last year, the operators had also had to limit their capacity to operate on account of low profit margins. And this is in addition to the many levies they have to pay to the various regulatory agencies.
Now, other issues making impact on the Nigerian aviation industry include the concessioning of 4 major international airports, the establishment of a national carrier, Air Nigeria, increase in ground handling charges, as well as the setting up of a leasing company, since Africa currently has none.
Well, another strategy which seeks to aid the repositioning of the sector is the establishment of a maintenance, repair and overhaul facility in order to curtail capital flight that is usually incurred in the maintenance of aircraft outside of the country. There are also, as you said a while ago, plans afoot for leasing facilities for domestic airlines. Now, these are very important issues, but we also know that the knock-on effect in terms of cost is a factor.
Well, it's also surprising too that Nigeria, having operated this industry for decades now, is still lacking some basic requirements and needs, for the operators to operate without hitches as we have it currently. All right, there are also plans, to set up an indigenous company to help address communication, power, construction, and general procurement issues in the sector.
Well, what we do know at the moment is that there are a number of BASA agreements, that's bilateral air services agreements, which were signed between Nigeria and a number of other countries. Now, those BASA agreements are either in abeyance or where they are being operated, they appear to favor more foreign interests, and these BASA agreements remain a major concern to industry players.
Yes, but government is taking steps towards addressing some of these issues, as seen in the response to the UAE government's attitude towards one of Nigeria's airlines this year.
The aviation sector in the country contributes around about 59 billion naira, we understand, to the national gross domestic product, and supports well over 150,000 direct and indirect jobs. The industry is also said to generate well over 8 billion naira in taxes annually. So far, the efforts to ensure that domestic airlines continue to expand their fleet and operate, those efforts are running into hitches with the latest matter around the high cost of aviation fuel, which is a major cost factor for the airlines.
And observers say the operators should also seek better strategies to address flight delays, rescheduling, and cancellations induced by the high cost of aviation fuel. These issues inform our focus on the aviation industry today. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kirian Umayo. Thank you for finding time to join us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program Good Morning Nigeria, which is broadcast on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're live from our Abuja headquarters studios. In the course of the program, we also have our complimentary segments, business, newspaper review, and others. For now, let's join Comfort Amodu, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. Here is the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has approved the reconstruction of 4 critical roads infrastructure in parts of the country under the tax credit scheme, valued at about 170 billion naira. Works and Housing Minister Babatunde Raji Fashola announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
There's a 20 billion naira provision under the NMPC tax credit scheme that will be used to kickstart this immediately. This is a road that should not suffer from sustained funding challenges. Very critical road. It leads to the Mambila Plateau.
And a new National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy 2022 to 2025 has been approved by the federal government. The policy will, among other things, fast-track the desired resolution in the agricultural sector of the nation's economy. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who announced this at the media briefing, also responded to questions on the fate of ministers who made a U-turn after indicating strong desire to seek elective positions.
And approved by the council members, including the new National Agricultural Technology Innovation Policy.
The policy is also going to help and promote knowledge creation and transfer, impact on quality extension service delivery, to the enhanced technology adoption, to strengthen value chain for priority crops, fisheries, and to support establishment of functional models of ranches, grazing reserves, and integrated meat and dairy processing, among others.
The All Progressives Congress has approved a revised timetable and schedule of activities for House of Assembly, National Assembly, governorship primaries, and appeals that may arise from the processes. National Publicity Secretary of APC, Felix Moka, at the end of the National Working Committee meeting, said governorship and House of Representatives primary election will now take place on Thursday, the 26th of May, 2022. The Senate and State Houses of Assembly primaries will be on Friday, the 27th. The special convention and presidential primary will now take place between Sunday, the 29th and 30th of May, 2022. However, he said no decision was taken on zoning. And as the All Progressives Congress prepares for its forthcoming special convention and presidential primary election, now scheduled to hold on the 29th of May, the party's support group say they expect quality representation. The Presidential Support Committee promised to mobilize and promote progressive opinion leaders.
To this end, we have discovered a prominent personality among us who has pioneered the leadership of the organization put such stress that will carry our country to the promised land.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has made a strong case for his presidential aspiration on banner of the People's Democratic Party, describing himself as a long-standing politician aspiring for presidency for more than 30 years. This, he says, makes him most credible alternative with vast experience to bring PDP back to power at the center. Atiku Abubakar said this while addressing party delegates from Kaduna State, where he asked them to vote wisely during the party's primary election.
I pledge to unify this country, to give every part of this country a sense of belonging. I pledge to work with the state governors that will be elected, the National Assembly, the state assemblies, so that we can see how we can amend the constitution and give more powers, resources to the states and the local governments.
Away from political matters, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has denied the bail application of the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. The presiding judge, Justice Binta Nyako, gave the ruling in a bail application filed by the council to Nnamdi Kanu. President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled with families over loss of lives in Sabongari, Kano State due to the gas explosion, in which 9 casualties were reported, and directed officials to provide adequate treatment for the injured persons. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the President wishes the injured a speedy recovery. President Buhari commended the immediacy in response to the incident by the agencies of state government, National Emergency Management Authority, NEMA, the military, police and other agencies of the federal government. He praised the Almighty God to strengthen families of the victims, the government and people of Kano State. And that concludes the news this morning. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly with Kinsley and Kieran after this break.
All right, let's welcome Bayo Atayebi. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Killian. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Right, Bayo, good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, here.
Yeah, well, we have 3 papers here to review. And first, we'll begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper, above the name flag, we have 80 billion naira fraud. EFCC uncovered 17 properties linked to Accountant General. That's on page 14. Also on page 14, we have 25 presidential aspirants filled submitted forms, says APC. All right, Anambra police warn against violence as court denies Kano bail. That's on page 7. We have on the right-hand side of the name flag, we have ASUP on strike for 147 days under Buhari. I will have that story on page 9. The imported vehicles, customs to redeploy controversial evaluation policy on Friday. It's on page 22. Now, the lead story on the Punch newspaper, APC governorship primaries, that's the kicker, say though battles in Oyo, tough battles in Oyo, Sokoto, Rivers, as 44,045 delegates elect candidates. That's on page 2. That story has 2 riders. Amici Abe supremacy battle results in gunshots, chaos, factions, trade wars. APC denies zoning presidency, shifts National Assembly and governorship primaries. All right, the photo story shows the catch of arms and ammunition, perhaps recovered from hoodlums. Suspected bandits and kidnappers joined the parade by police in Abuja on Wednesday. All right, and below that we have Nigerians pay more for kerosene than petrol, according to reports on page 22. Police vigilante confront terrorists, kill 6 in Katsina, is on page 9. Suspension a joke, embattled Zamfara chairman tells PDP. The story is on page 8. Now, 727 Nigerian doctors migrate to UK in 5 months. That's on page 8. Shops razed, vehicles destroyed as Okada riders, Abuja traders clash. That's on page 4. EFCC arrests ex-NTDC boss over 47 billion naira fraud. We have that story on page 7. And should I just go through the leadership?
Yes.
Newspaper. All right. PMP to decide returning minister's fee. That's on page 8. Alleged 80 billion naira fraud. Federal government suspends accountant generals on page 27 of the leadership newspaper. Police killed 6 bandits. Arrest kidnappers. Killers of Greenfield Bethel students on page 7. 16 days to INEC deadline. APC, PDP in game of hide and seek over primaries. Page 4 is where you get that story. Now, 24 hours after opposition party adjustment of activities, governing party reschedules timetable. We are not bothered by APC's antics, says PDP. Race between Amici and me, say Baleru. Atiku vows to crush bandits. Nasarawa, Shekarau form alliance against APC PDP in Kano. All right, Kingsley.
Okay, I have the Nation newspaper. Just take a few of the headlines and then we'll move over to bio. Just below the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, lockdown in Southeast states over Nnamdi Kanu. And judge denies IPOB leader bail. And the photograph you see there on the front page has the caption, suspected kidnappers of Greenfield University students and other kidnap and rape suspects during their parade by the police in Abuja yesterday. You can see the automatic weapons recovered from those suspects and most likely others. Banks to get customers nod for data usage. Why APC changed dates for governorship and other primaries. Election of presidential candidate May 29th and 30th. And party fears annex sanctions. Other dates, governorship and House of Reps May 26th. Senate and House of Assembly May 27th. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with a report from the Economic and Financial Crime, where it reports that the former managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, Mr. Nsima Ekere, is reported to have been arrested. This is in connection with a alleged diversion of funds meant for contracts to the tune of 47 billion. Mr. Ekere, who was managing director of the NDDC between 2016 and 2018, is said to have allegedly channeled the diversion of the funds through registered contractors. He is currently answering questions, and this was confirmed by Mr. Wilson Uwajere, the spokesperson for the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. Meanwhile, the Honorable Minister for Finance, Budget and National Planning has directed that Mr. Ahmed Idris, the Accountant General of the Federation, should proceed on indefinite suspension pending the outcome of the investigation. It is no news now that the Accountant General has been indicted for allegations worth 80 billion naira. Meanwhile, the Punch reports that the EFCC has uncovered 17 properties linked to the arrested Accountant General of the Federation. The alleged properties are acquired and are located in Kano, Lagos, Abuja, Dubai, and London. Proxies were said to have been used in the acquisition of those houses, and according to the FCC. Meanwhile, this indication is because he didn't declare this property when he filled the code of conduct for declaration of assets. As required by law, some of the property at Abuja are said to be in service estate, and the EFCC is said to be perfecting documents to present a request for interim forfeiture at the courts. Also, the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting was held yesterday with 4 members who had earlier on changed their mind from contesting elective positions also attended. One attended physically, the other 3 attended or participated virtually. When asked about their status, the Minister of the Information and Culture says that their continuation of as members of the Federal Executive Council depend upon the appointing authority. Alhaji Lahi Mohammed says he will have to seek clearance from Mr. President to determine who is going, who is coming back, or who is not going. And everything he says lies with Mr. President.
It's a straightforward thing. I mean, if you are running for any position of authority, you resign and leave. I wonder why that should be any kind of confusion or misunderstanding of what is happening there. For me, there shouldn't have been any clarification whatsoever. If you are running, you are running. If you're not running, you are not running. You say, look.
Well, there were those who indicated they were going to run and later on changed their mind that they are not running.
There should be a letter to that. There should be a letter to the authority, to say, look, yes, I declared, but now I'm rescinding my decision.
There was fracas yesterday at Day is in the outskirts of the FCT, and this resulted from an unfortunate accident when a Okada man was carrying a woman, and there was an accident and the woman died. It led to a fracas between motorcycle riders and traders, dealers in building materials in Day. This started about 2 p.m. and lasted the whole day up to 5 p.m. and there was confusion. Bonfires and activities around that area was suspended.
Was that no intervention
along the Day road
by the security agencies?
Yes.
They didn't
they had to intervene to maintain law and order. Also in Lagos, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu yesterday announced the ban of the operation of commercial motorcycle in 6 local government areas, and as well as some development areas. The local government areas are Etiosa, Ikeja, Lagos Island, Surulere, Lagos Mainland, and Apapa. The government declared, we will not sit back and watch criminally minded people use the mode of transportation to perpetrate crime and criminality. So the governor gives specific instructions. He emphasized that lives are being lost on a daily basis. Secondly, preventable accidents are happening on the daily basis, and the riders are not respecting any of our traffic laws. So
I think that may have been precipitated, by the killing of the sound engineer sometime last week.
Yes,
after he had issues to grind with an Okada rider. The Okada riders behave alike, in whatever city that they are, or in whatever part of the country. When you have any brush, with any of their members, they will just rally around and they don't even want to know what happened or who is wrong or right. They just descend on you. That's what they do. It is actually even in other parts of the country, not just Lagos. That's what they do.
Apart from that of Lagos, even in Enugu, there has been prohibition of Okada riders based on the same violence. And the issue you referred to, the engineer who was killed at Lekki, yesterday the task force arrested 10 motorcyclists in a 4-hour operation. They were said to be complicit in the alleged murder of the sound engineer, one Mr. Okon, who was killed.
Well, on the issue of the restriction of Okada operators in parts of Lagos, I think it's a step in the right direction. The order is to take effect from the 1st of next month, which is the 1st of June. Sometimes we forget that for you to have a livable society, there must be law and order. Law and order. Part of what we find is that any vehicle, 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, 10, 14, or 12, whatever number of wheelers, can move into any neighborhood and get out. Elsewhere, you have the tonnage capacity of vehicles that can ply certain roads. I'm talking about inner city roads. And if you cannot have motorcyclists operating as taxis, or Okada as they are called, in every nook and cranny and urban areas of a city, let's face it, they are a menace, they are a nuisance. And a number of them have also been cited for using criminal activities. In addition to the level of rate of accidents that they get engaged in. There's an Okada award that was created at Igbobi Orthopedic Hospital.
Yes, orthopedic hospital.
And you go there, you see passengers and even riders themselves who have broken limbs and are being attended to on account of the frequent accidents that they get involved in. So there's nothing that a government should stop at doing in ensuring that there is sanity on the roads. Lagos will not be the first state or jurisdiction to enforce it. El-Rufai banned Okadas from operating within Abuja city. You will find Okada within Abuja city.
Yes.
There is none.
In fact, it's even long overdue for Lagos, you know.
It's long overdue,
of all places.
In Edo State, I recall this around about 2006, 2007, the high rate of robberies and other crimes involved that Okada riders and the other accomplices were using led to a restriction on their operation. They used to operate 24 hours. They now said from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., no Okada should operate within the city. The crime rate went down. A couple of years after that, Okada operators were banned completely from the metropolis in Benin, and you don't find them. So if Lagos has to do that, Lagos is already congested. And then you have the pollution arising from these Okada riders. In these locations where the state governor has now said Okada should not operate, you have mini buses that take passengers, and the roads are well paved. So why do you need an Okada to be operating in Lekki, for instance?
But the point is that, you know, they have people who patronize them in the first place, you know, because with Okada, you can meander, you know, you don't have to be on the queue when there's traffic.
Indeed, that's why they got the name, they give themselves the name Okada. They are not restrained by any traffic snarl. Or so they come Okada, will take you, will fly you to wherever you
and
go.
when people
But
them.
apart from the utility, their crime involvement, alleged crime involvement, and their nuisance value is now beginning to outweigh their utility value in society.
Exactly.
In Abuja, where they are now consigned to the suburbs, not within the city, they are accomplice to phone snatching and people who are stabbed with knives every now and then that is fully detected.
Thank you very much. We also see here in Abuja city, that's the federal capital city, VIO operators from time to time raid these Okada operators who are in breach of the restriction to operate in the city. If you go to VIO at Mabush, you will see piles and piles of motorbikes. Motorbikes, first of all, they are licensed. The operators themselves don't even have a license. We have said good morning, Jenny. I'm sure you are aware of this. Years past, a bicycle had to have a license. And then a rider, for you to have it, there is a rider's license required for you to ride a bike. So how many of these persons are licensed?
You know, don't be licensed.
If we say we want law and order, you must enforce the law.
It does not matter how much, you know, we spend talking about this, because we've had programs, you know, on this platform regarding licensing of Okada riders and what have you. But after saying that, we even had the national president of Okada Riders Association.
He sat here. He sat here that day.
You know, discussing. And you know, he made us to believe that all is well, you know, the way they operate and what have you. I think there are some recalcitrant, you know, members of this association who, you know, behave abnormally, and as a matter of fact, you better not have any issue with them to argue about. If that happens, then the rest of them will come and they will descend on you, and that
they are dimensions to
lawlessness.
First of all, nobody goes to learn how to ride Okada. Nobody knows. They don't even know that there are highway rules where they have to obey. When you are going, they ride on the blind side of the driver. And if there is any skirmish, before you know, they'll swarm on the driver and say, take him to hospital. They won't even listen to what caused it. And secondly,
look at what happened at Day yesterday.
Yes.
It was a rider, an Okada rider, was conveying a passenger, and the Okada ran into an articulated truck, what we normally call trailers. The female passenger died. The Okada rider sustained injuries, and then the fellow Okada riders were said to have now come to say they want to take the Okada rider to the hospital and leaving the female passenger dead on the floor. And then people who were there said, how can this happen? Take the two of them. One will go to the mortuary, the other one will go to the A&E ward.
All right.
That was how they
They want to assist their member first, their member first, and the woman could not be taken care of. All right, gentlemen, we have to conclude it here for today. Bayo, thank you indeed for coming. We'll see you again tomorrow for more analysis on newspaper review. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria only on network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're focusing.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation on issues in the aviation sector, let's listen to this background by correspondent Garba Natala.
The pressure put on roads necessitated people to resort to air transport, making it an important means of transportation in Nigeria. Air transport also became a hub of economic development with the airlines as the core business drivers. But the Nigerian aviation sector has long been facing challenges, prompting successive governments to invest and make policies to compete with foreign airline carriers. Nigeria even went ahead to host World's Aviation Forum, a forum that could possibly work out solutions for Nigeria's carriers to thrive. In 2015, the aviation industry contributed 185 billion naira, that's about 0.4% to Nigeria's GDP, and supported many jobs. Experts believed the industry could tap more. Domestic operators, however, were grounded due to lack of funding and inconsistency in policies that hindered their success. To further increase the pressure in the aviation industry, domestic carriers came to terms based on their limited capacity to operate with low profit margins, levies to various government agencies, and many more. In 2022, the narrative continues to bite harder despite the huge investment made in the industry. The issue now is the high cost of aviation fuel. Taxation, among others, adds to the burden. For experts, Nigeria can surmount its challenges, thereby reviving domestic airline services across the country. While the government pledged to continue to innovate to meet local demands, what are stakeholders suggesting that will move the industry forward? How can the plan of ease of doing business come to play in the sector? And how many active domestic carriers are currently operating across the country? Guests on the program will provide answers to these questions and more.
Well, thank you, Garba Natala, for the background report. Now, joining us here in the studio to speak on issues in the aviation sector is first Godike. Godike is an aviation analyst. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kieran.
All right, and of course, we hope another guest is going to be joining us very shortly in our Lagos studio.
Okay, from Kano, we are being joined by another guest, Engineer Adamu Muhammad, who is quality manager at Max Air. Engineer Adamu Muhammad, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Hello, good morning. It's my pleasure.
And, with us via Zoom from Bauchi, Bello Ahmed Alkali, Managing Director of Northeast Regional Shuttle. Alhaji Bello, we are delighted to have you with us this morning.
Good morning.
Okay. All right, Kira, the Zoom connection to Bauchi is pretty clear at this time, so might as well take advantage of it before turbulence sets in and then we start having distortions. Gentlemen, in recent weeks, the aviation industry has been in the news. Threats of suspension of services, and lately, announcement of likely additional disruptions to services, either delays or outright cancellations. This time on account of the increase in the cost of aviation fuel. Let's begin with the Managing Director of the Northeast Regional Shuttle. What's happening to the aviation industry?
Unfortunately, I think I didn't get you completely. Could you please come over? Now I can hear you.
All right. There was a background to my question. That's to say, there have been a number of reported issues said to be affecting, I don't want to use the word afflicting, affecting the aviation industry in Nigeria. And I'm asking you, as a player in the industry, what's really happening to the aviation subsector of the economy?
Honestly speaking, I have over time have had opportunities of coming to the NTA to discuss issues about what is happening in the aviation industry today. Unfortunately, I am getting really worried because it seems as if we'll just talk today and immediately we depart, the matter ended. So there are issues that, whether we like it or not, have to be addressed for us to have an effective aviation system in Nigeria. As much as we believe that it improved the economy greatly, it also reduces a lot of tension to the public, to the traveling public. Government should understand that it has a social responsibility to the citizenry, irrespective of whether aviation industry is a business venture. But as much as it is a business venture, government created regulatory authorities that regulate how operators operate. So as much as possible, since you are regulated, you should also have an enabling environment for these operators to operate. Today, we are crying of fuel pricing that nobody could do anything about because somebody will tell you it's a free market economy, so anybody can do the hell whatever they want to do, excuse my word. You come in the morning, you are trying to operate. Yesterday fuel was 500 naira. Today somebody will tell you it's 700 naira. So I don't see how Nigerian operators can operate effectively if situation like this will arise. Government needs to support carriers in every aspect of it, because our economy is not such an economy that the businessman will come into the market and who will find an enabling environment because people have the economy, have the economic power to travel. No, here we don't. So there are so many challenges facing the industry, and it's about time for the government to actually sit down with the operators, sit down with service providers to create an enabling environment that will allow these operators to operate effectively in such a manner that nobody will be complaining.
All right, back at the studio here where we have Godike, who is an aviation analyst. It is understandable, the fact that the industry globally suffered a setback, during the COVID-19, and that the result, that effect was that some airlines, even in other climes, grounded and all of that. And this could be a kind of a spillover, considering the current situation of the industry in Nigeria. As an analyst, let's put this into context. What are those peculiarities that have to do with the current Nigerian situation, in the aviation subsector?
All right. Thank you, Clearan. First of all, let me start by saying to you that yes, the period of COVID came, and I can tell you the aviation sector recovered quickly, from the COVID. It's what's going on right now in Nigeria has absolutely nothing to do with COVID. It rather has to do with planlessness and not keeping to schedule. You recall that in 2018, the Honorable Minister Hadi Serika, had what he described as Aviation Stakeholders Forum. This was at NAF Center. I think it was that was in 2018, and a whole lot of aviation-related organizations, both from abroad and within Nigeria, came personally, I was there, and I listened to him, and I took graphic record of all the information. He shared a 63-page, or would you call it a clip presentation that was so good, so beautifully, arranged and put in place. We were all happy about what we saw and what we heard. But I tell you, from then up until this day, there's not one item on the 63-page, prediction he made that Nigerian aviation would say. If you have time, I can quickly access that and quickly run for you what he. I have it here in my iPad. Run for you what he said we're going to be seeing. Now, the sad aspect of it is that at every point he set a target that by this time, up until this time, this will happen and that will happen. When the time comes and passes and nothing happens, no one bothers to explain to Nigeria and indeed the world, because aviation is a global business. It's not just about Nigeria. It's global. You can't exist right just on your own. We just kept going on that way. Another sad part of it is that when correspondents, your fellow journalists who specialize in following up aviation activities, make to get information from the Ministry of Aviation, nobody says anything to anyone. And as a matter of fact, it got to a point that it will appear that we are dealing with an enclave where people have, or rather people that are operating behind closed shops.
Can you be more specific here?
Yeah.
Let's get to know all those areas in question, what are the critical issues?
Okay. Let's take, for instance, the issue of Nigeria Air. We were told that, way at the beginning of this year, that our Nigeria Air will be in the skies. Up until this moment, we don't know where we are with that, except for about 2 weeks ago. I heard Mr. Ohanire, the acting DG of the infrastructure, agency, saying that, we're hoping that by the end of 2022, that Nigeria Air, that's the only information that's been received from anyone. Then, coming again on the issue of the aviation fuel, over the years, we didn't do or put in place the appropriate infrastructure that should have been ensuring that even when the product is available, distribution, is a big problem, even up until this day. Elsewhere, you have dumps right there at the airport, piped in from, the tank farms that are not too far away from the airport. Everything is so done seamlessly that when planes arrive and they need to top up, right there and then in the airport, they are positioned and the hoses get into the wings and fuel, volume of fuel, needed is pumped in. But what do we have here? Tankers running up and down our runways. And I mean, at this time in the world, we should have had all this infrastructure all in place over all these years. I'm not necessarily blaming the government in power right now, because this has been going on and they just keep handing over from one government to the other, and nothing seems to be happening.
Who should be responsible for the provision of the decking system you're talking about?
Well, it's a combination of, first of all, is that if you have a visionary leader in the aviation sector, and I'm talking about having a visionary minister of aviation who would take charge, because like I told you, my observation is that we have an enclave in Ministry of Aviation. It will appear that anybody that comes in there as a minister gets sucked in, and twisted to the old order, even when you have an intention to implement a new order. So we need somebody with very strong character that will look Mr. President that appointed him in the face and say, Mr. President, if we must get it right in this department, these are the things that will happen. These are people that need to be moved around. This is the way we have to organize things so that things begin to work. At the moment, I tell you, the level of insensitivity and big-headedness in that ministry is totally unacceptable. And that's where we are.
Okay, got it. Let's pause you in the meantime and go over to Kano, where we earlier introduced the quality manager for Max Air. Max Air is one of the country's airline operators with a sufficiently large fleet. Engineer Adamu, tell us what is happening, in your opinion, to the aviation industry right now. What is the biggest headache?
Our biggest headache now is aviation cost, high cost of aviation fuel. Last year the fuel was 160 naira, but now we buy the fuel at the cost of 700 naira. And another challenge we have is unavailability of lack of maintenance facilities. So the aircraft normally go to abroad for check. And another challenge we have insurance, high insurance premium, and multiple taxation.
Okay. Are these just the issues that would you like to expatiate on some of the points you raised so far? You have aviation, you have aviation fuel problems. You also have the issue of maintenance. What exists in other climes, and how best do you think Nigeria can handle the issue, especially the one that concerns having an infrastructure designed for maintenance of aircrafts?
Nigeria need to involve into maintenance to open another maintenance facility in other states, so that our aircraft they don't need to go to abroad for check. They can carry out their check here, and our personnel here, maintainer, we have engineers, they can have job. And the forex also, they don't need to go to go to bank, because there's no dollar. You have to, there's no the dollar is high. You buy dollar at the cost of 590. So that's one of the major issues.
Okay, Engineer Adamu, thank you. We will return to you. We know that you've touched on some issues. Last year, aviation fuel, according to you, was 116 naira per liter. This year is 700 naira per liter. And high insurance premium, as well as the absence of MRO facility in the country. From our Lagos Network Center, we've been joined now by another veteran consultant in the industry. For many years, he was with Nigeria Airways, Chris Aligwe. I'd delight to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria. Chris Aligwe.
Good morning, my brother.
The way you responded, good morning, my brother, it sounds like your body language is conveying a sense of frustration. But of course, we have to deal with the issues that confront us, and in particular, this particular sector. We can't give up on ourselves. The biggest story that we have all heard lately has to do with aviation fuel. What accounts for this? Last year, price was, we are told, 160 naira a liter. This year, suddenly 700 naira a liter. What are the factors in this price leap?
Well, thank you. Maybe you misread me. No, I'm not frustrated. I've become used to some certain challenges. I don't want to be permanently used to it. But the fact of the matter is that aviation fuel is a challenge, just not only in Nigeria, in other places. The price of crude oil, then you now have the battle, the war in Russia, between Russia and a sister country. That war has caused a whole lot of problems and has piked up the cost of crude oil. Worse still, we are not, as a country with huge resources in that sector, we are not refining. We are still importing Jet A1. Even the PMS is a problem. I don't know what has happened in Abuja now, but last week I was in Abuja. I saw the challenge there. We are lucky in Lagos here. It didn't come to Lagos. But if a country, Nigeria, will have challenged with PMS, talk about Jet A1. So, in actual sense, we have multiple problems in that area. Yes, there's a global challenge. Even Emirates, one of the world's best airlines, reported $1 billion loss in the last quarter, talking about the challenge of aviation fuel. So, it's a challenge, but Emirates will find it in their country, but we're not finding it here. Worse still, like you said, I don't know what has happened with the dollar rate, but all our airlines are domestic airlines, and they earn no foreign exchange. That is a major challenge. They earn no foreign exchange. Even those of them who are operating here, one of them also operating internationally to a few routes, Airpeace, is certainly not earning that kind of money. It's not earning foreign exchange. So the airlines are suffering. That's the truth. We have challenge. The economic challenge is there on all sectors of the economy. But all that I'm saying is that the aviation challenge is global for now. And I asked one of the operators. He said, no, even some foreign airlines come to buy from our country because it seems cheaper in our country than some other places. He didn't mention those places, but I just wanted to find out, say, what are the foreign airlines? How are they managing? He said some of them come to buy from here. But more importantly, it is not available. And that is a sad situation. I think sometimes people tend to say, I told people 2 weeks ago that this challenge is not out of our aviation ministry. It's a challenge primarily for NMPC to tell the country what is happening with Jet A1. NMPC is responsible for importation of fuel, whether directly or with all the companies that are associated with it. Why are we not having Jet A1 in our country? And until we look at this thing holistically, we are not going to get where we are. The airlines are suffering. The passengers are suffering because they're passing on the cost of passengers. But even at that, when the cost is not being passed to passengers, delays coming, and they are impacted. Everybody is impacted. Businesses are impacted. Maybe government offices are not impacted. I don't know, but I think they are also impacted. So I do not know what to say when it comes to that. Maybe that is part of the frustration because we know who is in charge and we are not holding that person in charge responsible. All these kind of side attacks or looking the other way. Let us talk about let us address this issue squarely. Nigerians should ask NNPC, and yes, so not yes, and Nigerian Petroleum Corporation, what is happening with Jet A1? They have a responsibility to tell Nigerians. It's not any other person, not the airlines, not the aviation ministry, not even the central bank. No, NNPC should tell us this is the challenge and this is what we are doing to address it. Until we get to that point, then I don't. Much of the thing we are saying is just not fruitful.
Gentlemen, let's still stay on with the issue of scarcity of aviation fuel, and let's go to Bauchi and have Bello Ahmed Akali respond to this. Sometime, I think about 2 months ago, one of the operators of an airline addressed the National Assembly on the issue of aviation fuel scarcity. And he actually represented other operators in the industry. And he said, look, that the operators would like to be licensed to be the importers of Jet A1 fuel. What has happened to that request? Are you people prepared, to be part of an importation of aviation fuel? And if that happens, will it solve the problem that we have now concerning the scarcity of this very important product?
Absolutely. If you say it's a free market and you have an industry that probably one aircraft is costing $50 million, $100 million, I cannot see how operators cannot sit down in a round table and organize themselves to become aviation fuel suppliers. All the NPC need to do is probably give the airline operators of Nigeria the license to say, okay, fine, we'll give you a license to go ahead and process or go ahead and see how possible it is for you to import and then store the aviation fuel that you need. Evidently, like the last speaker mentioned, we don't seem to understand why the problem should persist. We cannot see why NNPC cannot handle the situation the way it should be handled. Understandably, in Nigeria, we have a situation. Yes, we produce crude oil. Unfortunately, notwithstanding the number of refineries that we have in the country, we still do not process our crude oil here. So that's the reason why you sometimes see the incessant fuel crisis, like he mentioned in Abuja. I just got out of Abuja yesterday. I know what I went through to fuel my car. I don't understand. In 2022, with all the technological advancement, with all the crude oil money that we have, till today, we cannot handle our situation. It is more than sad, more than unfortunate for me to find myself in this kind of situation. So yes, if the government will sit down with the operators to find out how capable, how ready they are to, source and store aviation fuel that they could use, probably we may come to a conclusive conclusion of settling the problem that is bedeviling the aviation fuel supply.
Okay, thank you very much, Alhaji Ahmed Al-Kale. I was just wondering, Kirian, I mean, if every sector of the economy that is critical will have to bring in its own petroleum products, that would be chaotic. I think that's the reason why Prince Aligbe raised the issue of saying, look, the NNPC is in charge. And I do recall that I think it must be the Kaduna refinery that also was constructed with the capacity to refine aviation fuel, that is dual purpose kerosene, and then you have that which comes out of it. But let's remind ourselves, Godi, about 5 years ago, we had the similar crisis with aviation fuel. I recall I was stranded at the Lagos airport. Flights were cancelled. You had to come back over for a 48-hour period. You still couldn't get on. on that occasion, I think it had to do with the infrastructure you were talking about. That there was some dump or some storage facility, and the pipelines had ruptured, and so they couldn't pipe aviation fuel to the airport terminal areas where the tankers could then take and then fill it up. But as we sometimes we muddle through some of these things, so we overcome it and we think that things are settled. But we did have a similar situation on our hands about 5 years ago. Disruption in supply, but in this case, it is not just disruption; it's also the high cost. What are your thoughts on this whole scarcity of Jet A1 fuel?
Okay. The truth of the matter, Kingsley, is that most of the fuel we use around the world, not just only in Nigeria, come from Russia. Russia appears to be the country that has the highest hydrocarbon, materials in the world. I don't think anybody is competing with Russia on that. And the irony is that all the while we thought we were importing these products from Europe, it was actually Russian oil, that is to say Jet A1, PMS, and the rest of them, heading all the way from Russia to Europe.
To the refineries in Europe?
That's sometimes even the refined product will get to Europe, then our NNPC and whoever else that is privileged to import them will then buy from the European market and bring to Nigeria. Now, what has happened is that as soon as the invasion of Ukraine took place, of course, the NATO nations, which involve most of the European countries and the United States of America, imposed sanctions on Russia. And then along the line, the European countries, the NATO nations cut off, buying from Russia. So instantly, by the power of demand and supply forces, prices, went up right there in Europe. As a matter of fact, if you ask anyone that lives there, energy has increased 4 times over. Prices of energy has quadrupled. I have a son who's a medical doctor there. He told me just a week ago, Daddy, the last bill I paid before this Russian mess, I'm quoting him. I said, the last bill I paid before this Russian mess was £40 for just energy within my house. I just got a bill right now. Daddy gives how much? I said, how much? He said, £150. From £40 just before the war. So you can see that it's nearly quadruple. And so in that same way, the cutting off the Russian supply has created more demand than supply, and naturally prices went up, out there, and that's where our NNPC will buy from to bring to us. So inevitably, price would shoot up. And if you recall, a few days ago, I was on one of your channels, NTA, and I was recommending, and I said, listen, the way out of this is for NNPC or say government of Nigeria to open up this market. At the moment, it's a monopoly that we have on our hands. Open it up. License high net worth individuals and companies that can afford to bring in this product, and then target importing directly from Russia. At the moment, Nigeria is still Russia's friend because we didn't vote against them. Neither did we concern ourselves with the politics of the war, going on in Ukraine, and so we haven't imposed any sanction on Russia. Neither has the United Nations as a body. impose sanction. The people that are dealing with sanctions right now are the NATO nations and the United States of America and a few of America's friends. And so I'm not saying we are not America's friend, but what I'm saying in effect is that if we want to drive this price down, we must have more people having access to the licenses to import this stuff and then do the deal. Russia will be very glad to supply Nigeria everything we need to crash this price back to 100 naira a liter. That is the truth. So if we continue to do the old order for NNPC to do it all alone and get it from Europe, is a quadruple price that we will be getting. And of course, they will need their own little margin locally. And as a matter of fact, the trajectory I'm seeing is that with what the dollar is doing now against the naira, as of today, it's hit 600 naira per dollar as of this morning. And so the trajectory I'm saying is that we're heading to about 1,000 naira for a liter of Jet A1. That's where we're heading. Okay. In a few weeks, we'll get there.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not praying to get there, but people like my colleague who flies, wouldn't like to hear that, because it's also trickle down to affect the fare that you pay to fly. All right, Engineer Damu Mohammed, let's look at this. The aviation industry operators like you, would it be necessary to have form a kind of alliance, among your members, to see how best to address the issue of scarcity and invariably the high cost of aviation fuel? And would you also subscribe to your members having direct involvement, with the importation of Jet A1 fuel?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. So, they have, we have AON, that's Association of Nigerian Aircraft Operators. They can sit down and look at it, the possibility of, importing. If government can approve, they can import the aviation fuels and
Okay, Engineer Adamu, thank you. I raised the issue earlier whether any and each and every sector should begin to engage in their own direct importation. Kirian, there are a multiplicity of issues that you have to deal with: quality assurance, quality control. Earlier in the year, we saw what happened with the so-called off-spec fuel that was brought into the country. Now, if you are importing yourself, it will be your responsibility to be sure that the quality of what you are bringing is right. Do you have the capacity for that? It means you're going to have to hire the expertise again for that, which is going to ramp up your cost. If NNPC is doing business with refineries in Europe, again, I'm not privy to the details of those transactions. There's nothing that on the face of it that will stop NNPC from also doing business directly with refineries in Russia. That nothing, absolutely, on the face of it. That is in the absence of it, for the NNPC to speak to this matter. Mr. Chris Aligbe, I want to come back to you. One other issue that we keep hearing about, again in the aviation subsector, has to do with the rate of exchange. I often do not feel comfortable where the parallel market rate is often used as a denominator for evaluating the cost of business in the aviation sector. I understand, of course, that aviation fuel is a major cost item for the airlines, but if it's 590 naira or 600 naira to $1 on the parallel market, the I&E window, which is an official window, an airline business, an official business, ordinarily should be open to the airlines. The same thing with the maintenance and repair of aircraft. Why do we keep quoting parallel market rates rather than I and E window, that is import and export window. Is the central bank not open to the airlines in terms of this cost element that the airlines incur?
Once again, thank you. But just a second, I do not agree with airline operators that they should form a company to start importing fuel. They should run away from that and focus on running the airlines. That's a major problem, a major issue that they are facing now. We are facing challenges about that sector in terms of airline operations. How much more they going into importation of fuel? I don't support it, and I don't think it's a way out. That's one. But having said that, you are talking about forex. Like when we were talking about Jet A1, I said, look, we should address precisely the organization, the institution that is responsible, which is NNPC. Now, when you talking about forex, I don't understand also why the airline subsector, the subsector of the aviation industry is not brought under that special window by CBN. The fact of the matter is that we have refused in this country to see the airline subsector as a major contributor to the national economy. Maybe because the top echelon in various places they have private jets that they fly. That's why they don't think seriously about the operations of airlines in our country. It is not supposed to be so. Look at it. We know we have a African free trade continental area. They have 12 arrowheads to drive that program for Africa, so the unification of Africa by 2050. The number one arrowhead is SATAM, Single African Air Transport Market. That's the number one. They say that is the first number one drive head. So if the whole of Africa can recognize this, and we in Nigeria here, we don't see the airline subsector as a major contributor to our national economy, and then provide for it. We provide for agriculture, we provide for the manufacturing sector, we provide for various sectors, but the airline subsector is left as if it does not exist. It is very, very unfair, and sometimes I can't understand it. At this point in time, like I say, when it comes to Jet A1, NNPC should be asked. When it comes to this forest issue, the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank must be asked questions on this. Why are they not doing this? It is not just an elitist subsector anymore. It is responsible for movement of millions of Nigerians across the country from one point to the other. Is a drivehead for the economic growth and development in our country. So the airline subsector has been left where it is. Again, not by, I know the extent. That's why when think about, I know the extent Minister of Aviation has gone in trying to get some of these things resolved. But the powers that be in this year are not ready to listen to what is being said. It's sad. It's a sad commentary for our country that we are not looking at things holistically. We are plugging out every place, and we are not putting together what contribution has this to do. What is the trickle-down effect of this subsector? How can this help in moving people? The day is unpatriotic to say the airlines, the airlines should shut down for just a week. If they shut down for just a week, we will see how this country will go to the dogs. But they are keeping on, they are going on. We say, oh, continue because our country, the economy, and whatever. It is not on. Let us sit down. When situations get to this place, government sit down and say, let us address the issue. We have not come to address the issue. Everybody is acting on its own as if the airline subsector is an orphan. It is not an economic orphan. And I know my grouse with that subsector, because that subsector, when the issues come down about their operations and everything, we can talk about it. But in this, they are left as if they are not contributing anything to the economy. It is not true.
Mr. Alim, I'd like you to clarify, some of the things you said. You said that the Ministry of Aviation has done a lot to see how it can...
When airlines starts crashing, our experience of 2005, 2006, about crashes that we lost so many Nigerians, that made the then Obasanjo administration to call a meeting at the villa. Are we waiting for that to come again? Or is it when it comes, that's when we come together and start asking? This is the time to act. We should not wait for that situation to happen again in our country. We've come a long way in aviation. We are on the global rating in terms of safety. In terms of safety in not just in Africa. Globally, Nigeria is rated high in terms of safety. 6 years, 7 years accident-free. That is a record that we never had before. So let us come to this point that we need to address the issue. It is so critical to us, and we need to do that today. And CBN should sit down and tell Nigerians, the National Assembly, in their oversight function, they have not started the oversight function. It's not talking about union doing this or that. They should address the critical issue as it affects the airline subsector. That's my take on this, Kingsley.
I wanted him to do some clarifications because he alluded to the fact that the Minister of Aviation has done a lot to see how he can turn things around for the industry. And again, he now mentioned that the powers that be are not allowing things to happen. So who is that power that be? If the ministry that whose operations of the industry falls under its purview cannot do that, who are those power that be that wouldn't allow for a viable aviation industry in a country like ours? And again, who are those that patronize the industry? They are the people in the upper echelon of society. All right. So where do we go from what you have said? Who should be held responsible for not addressing the critical issues that we have mentioning here in this program today? How should it work in your own opinion?
When I say powers that be, these are sectorial issues. These are sectorial issues. When we talked about JT1, NNPC is the organization to sit down and tell Nigerians what the situation is. When it comes to Forex, we know who manages Forex in this country. So when I say the powers that be, what we're doing in this country is unfortunate territorialism. Most unfortunate territorialism. That's not how a country works. Every sector, critical sector, should sit down and look at it on that broad basis. It's not going to be a global thing. What does aviation require? What do we need? What is aviation doing into this economy? What contributions can he make? I have just told you, Africa identified the airline subsector, as an arrowhead, number one arrowhead for the implementation and realization of the African Continental Free Trade Area. What are we doing in Nigeria? When I say the powers that be, I'm not talking about the presidency. I'm not talking about it is the managers of the economy, of the financial managers, Central Bank number one, Federal Ministry of Finance number two. Let them sit down and tell us why. There are so many things happening in the aviation sector. If I tell you all the agencies in the aviation sector, particularly like FAN, they are battling to earn money. Whatever money they earn, the government takes 25% of what they earn immediately. And then tomorrow we complain that the airports are not what they should be. Look at what FAN is doing. Look at what... We are not looking at things holistically in our country. Territorialism will kill this country if we don't clear the territorial boundaries and see the economy holistically and bring everybody who contributes to play in that in a situation that our country will move forward. At this time, we are not moving forward. When you are talking about MRO or what are they, I will blame the airlines when the issue comes out, because they have their own problem, they have their own challenges. So when we talk about issues, we take those who are responsible. Those are the people I say, these are the powers that be. I know what they are. The aviation ministry will have its own problem, but in this situation, I know to the extent he has done. Even one of the operators talked about how the minister will carry them in his own car, going to meeting in CBN, going to meeting everywhere, NNPC, in his own car, driving them to this place. That's the extent a minister can go. Beyond that, most ministers won't do that. So let us address institutions squarely and call them to order. If they don't want to come to order, we stay where we are. Sometime, someday, the chicken will come to roost.
All right, Mr. Chris Olibwe, thank you very much there for your comment. All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I want to return to Bello Ahmed Alkali, Managing Director of the Northeast Regional Shuttle, who is still with us via Zoom from Bauchi. Elijah Ahmed Alkali, the view has been expressed in certain quarters that yes, the airline operators are facing some challenges. Some of those challenges, it is alleged, arise from the inefficiencies in their operations, but that somehow it's like the airline operators are pardon the expression, almost blackmailing government into getting more bailout. That the airline operators had received some bailout on account of the lockdown over the coronavirus pandemic, but that since the skies have reopened, the airline operators, discounting their own inefficiencies, are seeking to blackmail government, which is why we are hearing some of these lingering issues. Could you respond to this, please?
Yeah. What do we call a blackmail? We are here talking about there is no aviation fuel, or the high cost of aviation fuel that certainly is not from the operators. We are here talking about the impossibility of the operators to assess forex. We are here talking about the fact that we do not have infrastructure to maintain airplanes in Nigeria. We have to take airplanes abroad. That calls for payment in forex. We are here talking about local airlines not sourcing forex, but passengers buying tickets in Naira. I want to believe the only way airlines being paid in forex is when it comes to probably Hajj operation. Pilgrims going to Saudi Arabia, the National Hajj Commission pays the carriers in dollars. Pilgrims going to Jerusalem, the Christian Pilgrims Board pays in dollars. Outside that, all tickets are sold in Naira, including airlines like Air Peace that goes to South Africa and other places. People buy their tickets in dollars. So these are the three major issues challenging the aviation sector: aviation fuel, forex, and then the maintenance of these facilities. Believe me, I am part and parcel of this system. Believe me, I know how operators cry every day to make sure they do not fail the traveling passengers. We have spoken about NNPC not coming forth in settling the problem of aviation fuel. We have spoken about the Ministry of Finance and CBN not coming forth in settling the issue of forex. We have spoken that the government should have created an avenue whereby there will be MRO that will maintain bigger airplanes. Something is happening. At least there is one MRO in Lagos that is now trying his best to maintain Embraer 145s, and quite recently the NCA gave them approval to maintain Dana's MD-80, I believe. So we are not blackmailing anybody. We are in a situation here. Aviation fuel is high. We don't have forex. We don't have maintenance base. What is the blackmail there? It's not a blackmail. Today, if you are sending your aircraft for C-check, you are on your own. The central bank is not there. The forex is not there, probably because of the crisis all over the world. Even to source or to assess forex by government is also very difficult. But I can tell you, airline operators as at today probably have to buy their foreign exchange through the black market for them to buy spare parts, for them to send their airplanes on C-check. Recently, my partners have to buy an engine of an aircraft for $700,000. That money was sourced from the black market as 585 naira. That I know because I was the person who actually got the engine for them. So it's a big problem. Chris Alebe has mentioned what the situation is, and it saddens me that today nobody can do anything about it. Whatever the minister does, the fact that he is with us, the fact that he carries us in his car to meetings and whatever, probably that's the best you could do. You would get to the governor of the central bank, please give us forex. You would get to the minister of finance, please give these people forex. You would get to NNPC, please give aviation fuel. If we don't get them, I mean, he cannot go there with a cane. That is the best he could do. So as much as possible, please, I don't want people thinking that we are blackmailing passengers or we're blackmailing the government in trying to shut down our operations when situation arose. If, like the one of the participants said, aviation fuel will get to 1,000 naira very soon. I will not really be surprised if that happens. What do you want the operators to do? You are charging 50,000 naira. 50,000 naira today is less than $100, and you are flying from, for goodness sake, Lagos to Maiduguri, which is a flight of 1 hour 42 minutes. There is nowhere in the world that you will travel for 1 hour 42 minutes in an airplane for $100. So you see, the situation is the only thing working in the aviation industry in Nigeria today is the regulatory authorities scattering your energy. That is all that is working in Nigeria. Yes, the government has put in place a regulation, which is very good. I'm not complaining about that because safety is the number one issue when it comes to aviation, because you are dealing with equipment that flies. You don't have a parking spot in the air. So all these airplanes must be serviceable, must be in perfect condition for them not to crash on takeoff or not to crash or not to have engines failure in the sky and whatever. Oh my God. I'm sorry, you lost me, right? So there is no blackmail. There is a situation here. We need help, and this help must come as soon as possible, or else I will not be surprised if this airline will shut down one after another. They have reached a breaking point, and the government should be made aware that these three issues that are raised must be handled, and I mean with immediate effect, or else there is going to be a colossal problem that we don't want to find ourselves in. Is an economic subsector. It provides for a lot of funding to the government, and it's a safety issue. It provides safety to the passengers that fly. It's a social responsibility issue. It provides passengers from point A to point B, easy passage. So enabling environment should be there for the operators to operate effectively.
Well, that's not insane, the fact that the sector is contributing immensely, to socio-economic development of the nation. But the good news is that despite all the challenges that you have just narrated, the industry is still functioning. And there are other issues apart from that of fuel, or apart from challenges coming on the part of government agencies. Now, some airlines are said to still struggle, to get a grip on the constant changes, and many carriers have been seen to be slow in adapting to the changing economic environment as a result of overcapacity. Godike, what can you say to that?
Now, when you say changes and overcapacity, I mean, be more specific so I can tell you what I think about. What exactly are you driving at?
I'm driving at the way and manner the airlines function, their own contribution, their own part of a contribution, in the entire operation of the industry, apart from the role government should play, or perhaps regulating or regulatory agencies in that sector should play their own role in terms of adapting to the new changes in the aviation environment globally.
Oh yeah, it should be understood and taken for granted that aviation contributes heavily to the economy of any nation. And that's why each time I give my counsel, I say we should actually have airports in all the states of the federation. And then people say, oh, we haven't been able to maintain the ones we have, and you're asking us to add more. And I say to them, because we are not serious here, when we sit up and do the needful. For instance, India has over 100 and I think 60 something airports. Only 5% of those airports are viable. I'm just giving you an example of how any government who understands the impact of aviation in an economy should take it. Only 5% are viable. The rest of them are there serving Indians, and what they do is they do what is called cross-subsidization policies. That is, getting the successful ones to pay the bills that the less successful ones cannot pay. And they do also what is known as interconnectivity scheme. You do this cross-subsidization and then the interconnectivity scheme. In that way, you will reach every nook and cranny. For instance, if you were moving goods and services from Abuja to Lagos, if you were to do it by road, you take a whole day running to Lagos and then flow into the next day before the economic impact of that movement is felt, say in Lagos. Now, if you were to do the same trip by air, in 45, maximum 55 minutes, you touch down in Lagos, and you can see how the aviation sector hastens and puts the economy on the fast lane. We can't do without the sector. As a matter of fact, if you ground our airplanes today, Nigeria becomes as good as non-existent. So what I'm saying in effect is that the economic impact of aviation is unbelievably high, and until we understand it and pay attention to resolving the challenges the airlines are having, then we will not know what we're doing to ourselves. And when it comes to a point where the airlines cannot operate anymore and keep the planes on the ground, I'll tell you what, the economy of this nation will crash. And what will follow will be that those who cannot resist the pressure of that inability to put food on the table will lose their heads and their minds, and you see a whole lot of madness in the streets of Nigeria. We don't need it. And so my recommendation would be that government must realize that it is her business to keep the country stable, socio-economically stable. It is their business to keep the country secured, and therefore, for this window of time, say, my recommendation, 90 days, about 3 months, as NMPC becomes magnanimous enough to issue out licenses to those that can afford to bring in these products, the airlines should be allowed to increase the ticket fare to a level that they can at least break even if they can make profit, they can at least break even. And then government will absorb in terms of subsidy the excess for that window of time of about 3 months, while we make arrangements to massively import these products directly from Russia. And then, of course, look into how our refineries can begin to work. This is a big shame that a country like ours, with all the intelligent people we have here, and with all the resources, don't tell me that Nigeria is poor. Nigeria is not poor. Nigeria is a wealthy nation. Anywhere you go in the world, and I've been privileged to really travel around the world, and anywhere you go in the world and you mention Nigeria, oh, very rich people, and you say, but we're suffering, and they say to you, as soon as you kill corruption, you stop suffering.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you also remember what happened earlier in the year when airline operators increased their fare for, say, a 1 hour route. It then became 50,000.
Yes.
The Federal Consumer and Competition Council or Commission directed the airlines to crash those fares, but the airlines, of course, were adamant. Because they needed to be able to recover some of their costs. But if you are now saying that the airlines should further increase the cost of their fares, well, the knock-on effect on the economy will be very palpable. One issue that has also come up into this conversation has to do with the cost that the airlines incur in terms of their maintenance and repairs. And these again are denominated in hard currency.
In hard currency, yeah.
I know that Ahmed Alkali talked about an MRO that's opened in Lagos, but there's one in Uyo. It's been on forever. Look, Mr. Chris Aligbe, is it rocket science to have an MRO facility in the country? What does Ethiopian Airlines do? I recall South African Airways at Johannesburg Airport used to have an MRO facility where they even did checks on Boeing 747. Is it rocket science? And who should drive the process of the establishment and operation of an MRO, so we at least reduce part of the capital flight arising from getting planes abroad for C and D checks. Mr. Aligbe, quickly.
Thank you very much. Again and again, one would say that's a sad commentary for our country. When I left the media, 1988, joined Nigeria Ways, 1989, I think it was under the Presidential Task Force that was running Nigeria Ways. On the blog, they were discussing, it was not Nigeria Ways discussion, what they call National Hunger Project. It was driven by about two Air Force officers, retired Air Force officers, and the person was Dr. Demure. So the National Hunger Project for maintenance has been on for so many years, and nothing has happened. But airline operators should not put this squarely on government. They should accept responsibility that they have not done what they should do. Now, when government says we want to start this, they'll be the first set of people to say government has no business doing this, government should not do this. They want to read out the terms of government on when if he wants to catalyze something. I know the roadmap, present roadmap that the President Minister has includes an MRO. But there are 4 major items on that roadmap. The Nigeria Air, which is bringing back a national flag carrier, airport concession, MRO, and there's one other one that he wants to get this thing done. But then, how far has the airlines, the private keyed into this, particularly the MRO issue? It's been there. Yes, Akwa Ibom, Uyo Airport has a wonderful outfit for maintenance. It was never.
All right, Mr. Aligbe, we have to stop you there because time is no longer on our side. I know an ordinary man, Kingsley, will also wonder why we should have airports without having a maintenance infrastructure. It's really unfortunate. And at this point, gentlemen, we call it a day. We thank you indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on this very important issue. Godike, an aviation analyst, thank you indeed for coming.
Thank you.
From Kano, we had engineer Adamu Mohammed, quality manager Max Air. We appreciate your being here this morning with us. And via Zoom, we had Bello Ahmed Alkali, managing director and chief executive officer, Northeast Regional Shuttle. Thank you for your incisive contribution this morning. Well, it is said that we call it today on the program. Well, we had Aligbe as well. I'm not forgetting you, Mr. Aligbe. We also like to appreciate you for sharing your thoughts. Of course, you are a professional. He is an aviation consultant. Thank you for coming.
Okay, that's it for Good Morning Nigeria today. The program returns tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. You have a great day.